Latest in a long, long line of successful British locomotives.
It was once a treasured institution. British Rail in the 1950s and 60s modernised train travel in the UK, with adverts and promotional films such as this one, common ways for the government to boast of their success. However, with frequent strikes and delays, public opinion quickly changed against BR in the 70s and 80s, with passenger numbers dropping by a third between 1960 and 1995. It was eventually cut up and sold to private investors by the John Major Conservative government between 1993 and 1997.
Would my right honourable friend not agree with me that it's time that the prophets of gloom and doom opposite recanted and accepted the reality that privatisation is good for the railways and good for the taxpayers?
Well, my honourable friend is quite right.
But now, with rising costs and growing dissatisfaction at the services, there is an emerging movement to bring back nationalised railways. Formed by Ellie Harrison and Oliver Lewis in 2009, pressure group Bring Back British Rail wants to reunify and re-nationalise railways across the UK. They claim to have over 150,000 supporters and say the movement is still growing.
Well, the biggest tragedy about the privatisation of British Rail, which took place with a disastrous Act of Parliament in 1993, and I would really like to stress that lots of people at the time were saying this is going to be a disaster, don't do it, and the government ignored those warnings. Successive governments have failed to rectify those mistakes. But the best thing about recreating British Rail would be a guiding mind, so one national authority which can direct investment and allocate investment across different lines. At the moment we don't have that, and in fact we haven't had it since 1993. Given the public subsidy to the railways has tripled in real terms, the money that has gone into the railway, taxpayers' money that's gone into the railway, has not produced the outcomes that rail passengers would like to see. British Rail, for example, wasn't allowed to have debt. Network Rail has £40 billion worth of debt, and in all honesty, we don't have a lot to show for it. So commuters all over the country, from Newcastle to London to Southport to Scotland, have seen a huge increase in the relative cost of their fares. I mean, one thing that we focused on over the past few weeks is the 1% increase in rail fares. As everybody knows, inflation is at 0%, 0.2%. So even in an age when prices aren't increasing virtually at all, the relative cost of rail travel is growing, and that is wrong.
The call for renationalisation has been growing in recent years, with high-profile politicians such as Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn supporting the move. In 2014, a YouGov survey found that 60% of the population would be in favour of renationalisation. But many are also asking what a nationalised railway would actually change, and have pointed to growing passenger numbers under privatisation, as well as the negative reputation British Rail had before it was sold off.
British Rail is a much maligned institution, but it was actually in its last 4 or 5 years actually a very, very good operator of our trains. I mean, it's forgotten now, or people don't know the facts, but the year of greatest investment ever in our railways was 1990 to 1991. Huge investments, which included the electrification of the whole of the East Coast Main Line, brand new trains, station refurbishments. So BR was actually a lot better than it's given credit for. The demand for rail transport is derived from economic growth. So British Rail between 1984 and 1991 actually saw a massive increase in patronage, simply because the economy was growing. The economic boom created by Nigel Lawson. The economy then went into recession, and then it started returning to growth in 1993. So many people say that yes, privatisation has been a great success, the number of people travelling by train has increased by so much, but actually the vast majority of that, with 1 or 2 exceptions, is the fact the economy had the greatest period of expansion. It was 15 years, Gordon Brown's 15 years of continuous economic growth. So that's the primary reason.
While the railways in the UK are not going to be renationalised anytime soon, with costs rising once again and general dissatisfaction with the quality of service increasing, the movement to bring back British Rail could start to grow more and more in 2016.